We're streamlining, Richard. It's nothing personal. Eli folded his hands, leaned back in his chair like he was announcing a weather update. Then came the knife. Honestly, we can hire 3 new engineers for your salary. He said it without a hint of hesitation. No remorse, just a practiced line, something he'd probably tested out in a mirror before walking into this meeting. I looked past him for a moment, across the executive conference room. The whiteboard still had my diagram from last week's sprint strategy, untouched, except someone had erased the header and written restructure goals over it. Behind Eli was a window overlooking the city. Downtown traffic moved on like nothing was happening, because to everyone else, nothing was. But to me, this was the moment everything changed. My name is Richard Brown. I'm 53 years old. For the past 18 and a half years, I was head of engineering at a company I helped build almost from scratch. Not founder level, but early enough to have shaped every layer beneath what the company is now. I joined when we were operating out of a 2-room walk-up above a liquor store, writing back-end logic between power outages and greasy pizza boxes. Now they got 4 floors downtown, enterprise clients, international investors, and apparently no room for me. I didn't argue, didn't ask why me, didn't remind them I'd architected the very systems that let them track user behavior across 6 different platforms. I just sat back in the chair I had paid for with my blood pressure and missed holidays, and I listened. Eli kept going. Something about cost efficiency and leadership flattening. Camille from HR slid a folder across the table like we were closing a bank account. Termination documents, a severance clause, a pre-written LinkedIn post. Feel free to edit it, she said with a nervous smile. It was so clean, so corporate, so utterly detached from the weight of what was actually being taken away. They weren't just firing me, they were deleting institutional memory. They just didn't know it yet. I didn't touch the folder. Instead, I stood up, looked Eli in the eye. When the system breaks, don't call me. I won't be checking this email anymore. And I walked out. No yelling, no pleading, no dramatic speeches. I didn't give them the satisfaction of seeing me flinch, because I've lived long enough to know something they haven't learned yet. Systems always remember what you remove. I passed the DevOps bullpen on the way out, the space I personally expanded 2 years ago when the team outgrew the old workspace. I'd pulled strings to get them ergonomic chairs before budget approval, fought to get them a better paging system after a 3-day outage left everyone burnt out. Those engineers, most of them didn't even know I was leaving. Just another meeting on a Thursday. Outside, I paused at the building's entrance, felt the air shift, that weird sensation, like you're watching a life continue without you. People passed by on phones. Lunch deliveries arrived, elevators opened and closed. Business as usual. But for me, time had stopped. 18 and a half years, more than half my professional life, hundreds of launches, thousands of commits, all erased by one decision made in a boardroom by people who didn't understand what they were breaking. I walked to my car in the underground garage, keys in hand, but I didn't start the engine. Just sat there, staring at the dashboard. No tears, no fury, just stillness. A strange, steady calm, like the air right before a storm breaks. I thought about all the weekends I'd worked, the family events I skipped, the on-call rotations I picked up, so someone else could take their anniversary trip. What had I done all that for? To be told I was too expensive. But as I sat there, something settled in my chest. Not grief, not even regret. Something colder, sharper, focused. They thought they were cutting costs, trimming fat. What they didn't know, they had just removed their foundation, unplugged their compass, thrown their stabilizer overboard. Mid-flight, they thought I'd disappear, but all they did was start the countdown. I joined the company in 2005, back when it wasn't even called what it is now. The original name? A clunky mashup of the founder's initials and the only domain name they could afford for $8.99. We worked in a second-story office above a liquor store. The windows didn't open, the heating didn't work, and the coffee machine had to be kicked once before it started brewing. But none of us cared. We believed in what we were building. Back then, the biggest challenge wasn't scaling, it was surviving. We didn't have a testing pipeline. We didn't have CI/CD. We didn't even have a proper server rack, just a humming tower of cables and overheating hardware shoved in a corner next to the water cooler. I was the ninth hire, the first senior engineer. The guy they brought in after their first full-site crash lasted 72 hours, and no one could explain why. Within a month, I had built them their first actual monitoring system. Not elegant, not pretty, but it worked. Alerts were texted straight to my flip phone, and that was how it started. From there, I built the back-end infrastructure from scratch. Every API, every cron job, every failover path, mine. I created the skeleton the company would rely on for the next 15 years. I wasn't just writing code, I was building culture. Every engineer that joined, I onboarded them personally. Taught them our naming conventions, our logic trees, our core principles. I made sure people understood why we did things a certain way, not just how. One of my proudest moments came in 2009. We were prepping for our first big product launch, a client dashboard meant to handle real-time analytics. The lead product manager overpromised everything. Sales had booked 4 enterprise demos before we were even stable, and 72 hours before the launch, the system started dropping packets at scale. It was me and 2 junior devs I'd trained who stayed overnight, rewriting the caching layer line by line. We deployed 6 minutes before the first demo. It held. We landed the client, and no one ever saw the stress behind it. They just saw the numbers go up. Moments like that happened often. Times where it was quietly me behind the curtain, fixing things, anticipating edge cases, preventing disasters no one ever noticed. That's how engineering works when it's done right, and it looks invisible. As the company grew, so did I, from senior engineer to engineering manager, then director, eventually head of engineering across multiple teams. But even as I climbed, I stayed close to the systems, not because I didn't trust the team, but because I knew how fragile scalable architecture can be when you only look at diagrams. I made sure no one on my team ever felt alone during a crisis. We had a rule. If one person gets paged, we all show up. I once pulled over during a family dinner to walk a junior dev through a midnight rollback. Not because it was expected, but because I knew how that kind of mentorship changes careers. One of my favorite hires ever was a guy named Amir. He came in nervous, sharp, and fresh out of school. Didn't speak much in meetings, but I saw the way he broke down problems methodically, fearlessly. 3 years later, he was leading our infrastructure platform, still messages me every now and then just to say thanks. Those were the things that kept me around. It wasn't just about tech, it was about people. That team, they were like family. We had our traditions, Friday bug bashes with pizza, a Slack channel where we posted our worst code mistakes, anonymized, of course, end-of-year retros where everyone had a say, even interns. That culture mattered, and it came from trust. But over time, things changed, not all at once, not dramatically, but gradually, like a house shifting on its foundation. It started when our founding CTO, Omar, stepped back. Omar was sharp, tactical, fair. He understood systems, understood people. He knew how to challenge me without undermining me, respected my judgment, let me lead. When he left, there was a vacuum, and the company filled it with vision. That's when Eli came in. He had a strong resume, slick presentation, the kind of guy who could talk for 20 minutes and say nothing specific. The board loved him, said he had transformative ideas. I tried to give him the benefit of the doubt, invited him to team reviews, shared our long-term infrastructure challenges, offered to walk him through how we'd evolved. He declined every time. He wanted to start fresh, disrupt, break legacy thinking. At first, I didn't push back. I'd seen leaders like that before. Most burn bright and move on, but Eli dug in. He started hiring his own architects, folks who didn't report to me, didn't attend engineering all hands, didn't understand the system history. One of them suggested rebuilding our entire infrastructure on top of a decentralized edge protocol they'd read about on Medium. I told him we had 42 mission-critical microservices that weren't designed for that kind of fragmentation. He blinked, asked what a microservice was. That was the moment I realized we were heading for a cliff. So I started preparing, not because I expected to be fired, but because when leadership stops listening, systems eventually break. I backed up my documentation, refactored legacy scripts, marked critical endpoints, even printed out the original core data schema, just in case. I wasn't paranoid, I was experienced. Because in engineering, the thing that gets you isn't usually what's breaking, it's what looks like it's working fine, right until the day it doesn't. The calendar invite came in midweek. Subject line, leadership realignment, Q2 restructure. No details, no attachments, just a 30-minute block on my calendar with Eli, the new CTO, and Camille from HR. That alone told me what it was. Nobody schedules a realignment meeting between back-to-back sprint reviews, unless they're about to take a scalpel to the org chart. Still, I showed up on time, pressed shirt, quiet mind. I didn't let on that I knew exactly what was coming, because sometimes letting them think you're caught off guard gives you more power later. The moment I stepped into the room, I knew it was final. Camille wouldn't meet my eyes. Eli was already seated, hands folded neatly over a company-branded notepad, like he was about to host a webinar. "Richard," he started, "thanks for coming on short notice." I nodded. Of course. There was a pause, a fake one, like he was pretending to gather the courage to deliver hard news. Then came the speech, buzzwords wrapped in condolences. "As you know, we've been reviewing departmental efficiency across all levels. With the company's new roadmap and the growth of our junior engineering talent, we believe it's time to recalibrate leadership bandwidth." It was like listening to a robot perform poetry, flat, detached, over-rehearsed. Then he said the line, the one that burned itself into memory the moment it left his mouth. "Honestly, Richard, we can bring in 3 junior engineers for your salary." He even smiled when he said it, like it was a compliment, like I should be proud. I glanced over at Camille. She slid a manila folder toward me. Inside, a termination letter, details about severance, an NDA, a transition document for outgoing leadership, and insultingly, a draft LinkedIn post they'd written for me. "Feel free to edit it," she offered softly. "We wanted to make sure it sounded like your voice." My voice? That post read like it was written by someone who'd seen my name once in a Slack channel. "Grateful for the journey. Excited for what's next. Thankful to the incredible team." There wasn't a single sentence about what I'd built. No mention of the 18.5 years I'd given. No acknowledgement of the legacy I was leaving behind. What really got me wasn't just the dismissal, it was the erasure, the deliberate cleansing of my name from every asset, the way they were already positioning the narrative before I'd even left the building, like they wanted to pretend I'd never existed, or worse, that I had been non-essential all along. I closed the folder gently and looked Eli in the eye. "Is that everything?" He nodded. "We'll of course be here for any knowledge transfer support you can provide." I smiled, barely. "When the system breaks, don't call me. I won't be checking this email anymore." I stood, buttoned my jacket, and walked out without a handshake. On the way out, I passed the glass wall outside the server team's pod. Inside that room, every critical function I'd touched in the past decade, infrastructure I'd scaled from a garage-level tech stack to one of the most stable mid-tier systems in the industry. They had no idea what they were about to lose, No backups of my logic flows, no clue where half of the undocumented edge case scripts even lived. But none of that mattered to Eli. He didn't see systems. He saw costs. I passed by the front desk. The receptionist gave me a look. Sympathy. That's the only honest emotion I saw that day. On the elevator ride down, no one spoke. Just a few interns tapping away on phones. One of them glanced up and smiled at me. Maybe she recognized me from the onboarding videos I used to narrate. I nodded back calmly. When I reached the parking garage, I didn't drive. I just sat there, engine off, hands still on the wheel. 18 and a half years, dozens of launches, hundreds of fixes, thousands of hours gone in 18 minutes. I didn't cry, didn't yell, didn't call anyone. I just let the silence settle. There's a special kind of stillness that happens when your world shifts violently, but no one else seems to notice. What hurt wasn't the firing itself, it was the way it was delivered. Sanitized, corporate, devoid of humanity. No exit interview, no final team meeting, not even a thank you from the CEO. But beneath all of that, something sharper was forming. Not sadness, not rage, just clarity. They thought they were cutting dead weight, trimming overhead, modernizing. But what they'd done, without realizing it, was remove the one person holding the system together. The guy who didn't just build the roadmap, he was the roadmap. And now they'd find out what happens when you fire your stabilizer without a contingency plan. The first week after I left, there was silence. No emails, no calls, no emergencies. I figured they'd prepped something. Maybe Eli had one of his consultants draft a transition plan. Maybe they even thought they could copy my systems without fully understanding them, so I waited. Week 2, I got a call from Josh, one of the senior engineers I'd trained years ago. Smart kid, loyal, always dependable. He left a voicemail. Hey, Richard, not sure if you're around, but the staging environment keeps corrupting after deploys. No one knows why. Any chance you remember how we patched that loop from 2019? I didn't call back. Then came the Slack pings. Unfamiliar names asking for insight into a failover script I had written during a product crisis 3 years ago. Apparently, someone deleted the backup I'd manually configured because it wasn't documented in Confluence. Of course it wasn't, because it was supposed to be temporary until we migrated, something Eli postponed indefinitely. By week 3, I started hearing whispers from outside. A recruiter I knew casually sent a DM. Hey, was just told your company's platform is dropping requests like crazy. Clients are moving to a competitor. You okay? That's when I logged into the public status dashboard, the one I'd built as a transparency initiative. 3 outages in 5 days. One of them critical. The last one marked as unscheduled maintenance. I laughed. They'd laid me off without downloading the instructions manual. Now they were stuck trying to decipher my handwriting with a flashlight in a burning building, and I was just sitting there on my porch in a hoodie, sipping coffee, watching them twist. I started getting LinkedIn requests from people I'd never worked with, internal folks now suddenly interested in mentorship, former peers now in damage control mode, even Eli. He added me with a note. Hey, Richard, would love to catch up sometime. Lots of change happening here. Your insight would be hugely appreciated. I didn't accept. Instead, I updated my profile headline to Independent Systems Consultant, not currently looking. That alone was enough to trigger a few board members to reach out just to check in. I knew what that meant. They were hearing things, losing clients, trying to figure out how everything got so fragile, so fast. But I wasn't rushing to help because for the first time in nearly 2 decades, I wasn't responsible for anyone else's mess. They'd made their choice. Now they could live with the consequences. It started with an email. Subject, Richard, can we talk? Sender, Eli. I let it sit for 2 days. Then came another, longer, more urgent. We're hitting some scaling issues. Legacy system documentation is missing, and some teams are blocked. I know this isn't ideal, but if you're available even for short-term advisory work, it would mean a lot to the team. He didn't mean the team, he meant himself. I ignored it because the issues they were facing, I warned them about those 2 years ago. The codebase had dependencies that only worked because of 2 critical fixes, both of which I'd written during a 72-hour sprint after a third-party update broke our back-end integration. And no, it wasn't documented because when I tried to document it, Eli told me to decentralize tribal knowledge and let the consultants build a modular playbook instead. Then the real cracks started to show. I got a call from Brian, the only executive left from the old guard. He sounded tired. Richard, listen, I know things weren't handled the right way, but we're down 3 key clients. The site's been unstable for a month. We've burned through half our Q2 roadmap just trying to keep things online. I said nothing. He continued. We need you, not permanently, just as a technical advisor. I paused, not because I was tempted, but because I wanted to see how far they'd bend. What's the number? I asked. Brian hesitated. We're not sure yet. Eli's still finalizing that. I cut him off. If Eli's in the room, I'm not, period. That got silence. Then he said, let me call you back. The next day, a formal offer came in, 2-month retainer, 6 figures, no NDA, no non-compete, no oversight, full executive access. They didn't want help. They wanted control of the bleeding. I didn't say yes, not yet. First, I asked for a meeting with the board, not the whole board, just 2 of the original investors, the ones who sat across from me when I gave my first big systems presentation 10 years ago, the ones who used to say, Richard's the only one here who knows how this all actually works. They agreed. I told them everything, how the infrastructure was decaying, how Eli had frozen every upgrade I recommended, how his team had deleted 6 years of version-controlled deployment logs because they were redundant. And then I showed them receipts, not petty screenshots, actual systems behavior, downtime patterns, cost inefficiencies, the hidden load balance loop that was eating server time like a virus. I didn't gloat. I didn't insult anyone. I just showed them the facts. At the end, one of them leaned back and said, What do you want, Richard? I looked at him, steady, calm, clear. I want a consulting role, my own terms, direct access, no bureaucracy, and I want Eli gone. They didn't even blink. Eli was out the next day. The announcement said he was pursuing new ventures. I never saw him again. I walked back into the building I'd left just 2 months earlier, but I wasn't an employee now. I wasn't staff. I was a paid problem solver, independent, untouchable, essential. The engineering floor was tense. A few people nodded. Most just avoided eye contact. But Josh, the guy who'd left that first voicemail, he came up and said, We didn't know they were going to do that to you. I'm glad you're back. I smiled. I'm not back. I'm here. That's different. I spent the next 4 weeks doing what I always did, fixing things, only now. I wasn't under pressure, wasn't underpaid, wasn't invisible. I set up a clean transition plan, documented every critical path, left them with a roadmap they couldn't ignore, and once it was done, I walked out. No goodbye post, no cake, no handshakes, just quiet closure. After I left for the second time, this time on my own terms, I didn't go home and collapse. I didn't even take a vacation. I just slowed down, took walks in the morning, cleaned out my garage, caught up with people I hadn't talked to in years. Life had been moving so fast for so long, I had forgotten what stillness felt like. It was unfamiliar, but good. The consulting check cleared before I even got home. They'd wired it early, probably hoping it'd buy a little goodwill. It didn't, but I wasn't bitter. I wasn't angry, honestly. I felt clean. For the first time in almost 2 decades, I wasn't carrying a system on my back. I wasn't the guy they called at 2 a.m., wasn't the fixer, wasn't the glue, and I liked that. People kept asking what I was going to do next. Start my own firm, join another startup, write a book. I didn't know. What I did know was that I didn't want to rebuild something that could be ripped away when someone decided I was too expensive. Not again. A month later, I got a call from an old client. They'd heard about what happened, said they always respected the way I explained things. Like I actually wanted people to understand, not just show off. They had a team of junior engineers, smart, hungry, full of potential, but no leadership. Would I be willing to mentor them? At first I hesitated. I wasn't sure I wanted to step back in, but then I thought about it. They weren't asking me to save a system. They were asking me to build people. That felt different. That felt right. I took the role, not full time, not stressful, just guidance, a few hours a week, helping them learn the way no one ever taught me, patient. And then one day I got a message from Brian, the old executive who'd called when the company started to collapse. Not the firefights, not the all-nighters, the teaching, the calm of it. He said, Eli's replacement is trying to take credit for the system fixes. Just wanted you to know. I laughed. Then I deleted the message. Because by then, I'd already learned something important. Revenge isn't always loud. Sometimes it's silence. It's walking away while the building you once held up crumbles behind you. It's hearing they had to hire 4 people to replace you and still couldn't match your impact and never saying a word. I don't tell this story for sympathy. I don't even tell it to brag. I tell it because someone out there is where I was, in a chair across from someone who doesn't understand your value, nodding while they explain why you're no longer aligned with the vision. If that's you, don't flinch. Don't fold. Just prepare. Watch and wait. Because one day, they'll need you again, and you'll already have moved on.